You mean to tell me he left you nothing? The attorney asked quietly, his voice almost apologetic, as if the words themselves weighed more than the thick envelope resting on the polished oak table. Owen Maddox didn't answer right away. He simply looked at the final page of the will, where every family member's name appeared beside an inheritance except his own. His broad shoulders remained perfectly still beneath a faded Navy jacket, the same calm posture that had carried him through years as a Navy SEAL, but silence had become his greatest discipline long after service ended. Around him, expensive watches glimmered beneath the afternoon light pouring through the estate's tall windows. No one celebrated openly. They didn't have to. Their satisfied glances spoke loudly enough. Owen folded the document with deliberate care, thanked the attorney for his time, and walked toward the front door without asking a single question. Beside him, Max, a 6-year-old German shepherd with a silver gray and cream coat, rose gracefully from the hardwood floor. His amber eyes never left Owen's face, reading emotions no human in the room seemed capable of seeing. Outside, early autumn wrapped the property in cool air scented with pine, damp leaves, and fresh water drifting from the nearby lake. The enormous family estate overlooked miles of peaceful shoreline, where sunlight shimmered across gentle waves like scattered glass. Owen paused beside his weathered pickup truck, resting one hand against the driver's door. For years, he had believed this land would always remain part of his family's story. Now it belonged to everyone except him. He offered a faint smile that never reached his gray-blue eyes. "Guess we're traveling again, buddy," he murmured. Max didn't move. Instead, the shepherd slowly turned his head toward the distant lake beyond the trees. His ears stood high, his body stiffened. It wasn't fear, it wasn't excitement, it was recognition. Owen noticed immediately. Max had served beside military handlers before becoming his partner, and over the years the dog had developed an uncanny instinct for noticing things long before anyone else. A change in the wind, a hidden trail, a stranger watching from a distance. Owen trusted that instinct more than maps or memories. "What is it?" he asked softly. Max took several careful steps away from the truck, stopping only long enough to glance back as if making sure Owen followed. The path he faced wasn't the paved road leading out of town. It disappeared into an older section of forest few people visited anymore. Towering white pines filtered the afternoon sun into ribbons of gold across the moss-covered ground, while the quiet rhythm of water, lapping against the shoreline, echoed somewhere beyond the trees. Owen frowned. He remembered that direction from childhood, though barely. There had once been stories about an old lake house hidden beyond the northern cove, abandoned decades ago after its owner vanished from public life. No one in the family ever mentioned it anymore. Most claimed it no longer existed. Max let out one soft bark, then another, before taking a few more determined steps toward the forgotten trail. Owen looked back once at the mansion growing smaller behind him, then toward the woods ahead, where the breeze seemed to whisper through the branches with quiet purpose. For reasons he couldn't explain, walking away no longer felt like losing everything. It felt like the beginning of something someone had waited a very long time for him to find. Max moved with quiet certainty, his paws barely disturbing the blanket of fallen leaves as he followed the narrow trail between towering pines. Owen tightened the straps of his worn backpack and let out a slow breath. "All right, buddy," he said with a faint smile. "You pick the direction. I will trust you." The German shepherd glanced back only once, before continuing deeper into the forest. The farther they walked, the quieter the world became. Wind whispered through branches overhead, carrying the cool scent of cedar and fresh water. Every few hundred feet, Max paused, sniffed the air, then chose another turn without hesitation. Owen recognized pieces of the landscape from childhood memories that had nearly faded with time. Moss-covered stone fences rested beneath climbing vines. An old wooden fence leaned toward the earth after decades of storms. Rusted mailbox posts stood alone with no homes left behind them. "Funny what people forget," Owen murmured. Max answered with a soft huff and continued forward. Nearly an hour later, the trees opened onto a weathered gravel road. An elderly man wearing faded denim overalls stepped out of a small bait shop beside a weathered dock. He watched Owen for a long moment before his eyes settled on Max. "That dog looks like he knows exactly where he is going," the old man said. Owen smiled politely. "Most days I think he does," the man chuckled. "Not many folks head toward North Hollow anymore." Owen tilted his head. "North Hollow? Old lake property beyond the ridge. Been empty for years. Folks say the place waits for somebody." Owen raised an eyebrow. "Somebody?" The old man shrugged. "Stories grow larger every year. You know how small towns are." Owen nodded. "Have you ever been there?" "Once." The man's smile slowly faded. "I never went back." Max suddenly stood perfectly still. his ears lifted high as he stared across the lake instead of toward the road ahead. The water reflected the afternoon sky like polished glass, but near the opposite shoreline a weathered boathouse stood hidden beneath towering evergreens. Max released one quiet bark, then another. "You hear something?" Owen asked. The dog immediately started walking along the shoreline instead of following the road. "Easy," Owen called. "Slow down." Max ignored the request for the first time that day. His pace remained steady, almost urgent, yet never frantic. The old man watched them disappear along the shore before calling out one final sentence. "If he takes you there, do not turn around because of what you think you see." Owen stopped for only a second. What is that supposed to mean? The old man simply smiled with tired eyes. Sometimes old places remember people better than people remember themselves. The breeze strengthened across the lake, sending small ripples across the water. Somewhere beyond the trees, a single wind chime rang once despite there being no house in sight. Max immediately lifted his head toward the sound and quickened his pace. Owen followed without another word, feeling less like he was exploring an abandoned shoreline and more like he had stepped onto a path someone had quietly prepared long before he ever arrived. Max stopped so suddenly that Owen nearly walked into him. The dog stood at the edge of a narrow clearing where the trees gave way to a quiet stretch of shoreline. Across the water, tucked beneath towering evergreens, rested a weathered cabin whose cedar walls had faded to the color of driftwood. Its chimney leaned slightly and ivy climbed across the stone foundation, yet one detail refused to fit the picture of abandonment. A thin ribbon of smoke drifted lazily into the cool afternoon sky. Owen narrowed his eyes. "Someone has been here." Max answered with a low, steady whine instead of a bark. His tail remained still as he took several careful steps toward the cabin. The old wooden dock groaned softly beneath Owen's boots as they crossed a shallow inlet. Every board carried the marks of countless seasons, but none had rotted through. Someone had replaced damaged planks within the last few years. Owen crouched beside a fresh boot print pressed into damp soil. "Less than a day old," he whispered. "Whoever came through here did not expect visitors." Max sniffed the ground, circled once, then stopped beside an iron bell hanging from a weathered post. Without touching it, he looked back at Owen. "Do not tell me you want me to ring that." The shepherd blinked patiently. Owen smiled despite himself. "You always did have unusual ideas." Before he could reach for the rope, the cabin door slowly opened with a gentle creak. An elderly woman with silver hair pulled into a neat braid stepped onto the porch, her blue eyes calm rather than surprised. She studied Owen for several seconds before speaking. I wondered how long it would take. Owen froze. She looked at Max instead. "I was expecting him." Owen exchanged a puzzled glance with his dog. "Ma'am, I think there has been some misunderstanding." The woman smiled warmly. "Perhaps, or perhaps misunderstandings are how truth introduces itself." She stepped aside and motioned toward the doorway. "You both look like you could use coffee." Owen hesitated. Years of military service had taught him caution, but nothing about her voice suggested danger. The cabin smelled of cedar, fresh bread, and burning oak. Sunlight poured through broad windows overlooking the lake, illuminating shelves lined with old books, fishing rods, and framed photographs. Turned face down against the wall, Max walked directly to the stone fireplace, sniffed once, then rested beside it as though he had finally reached a familiar place. The woman noticed. "Interesting," she murmured. "Most dogs spend several minutes exploring. Yours chose the heart of the house." Owen accepted a steaming mug from her hands. "I am Owen Maddox," she nodded gently. "I know exactly who you are." His expression tightened. "Have we met?" "No," she replied softly. "But someone who cared deeply about you made certain your name would never be forgotten here." Owen slowly lowered the mug. Outside, the evening breeze rippled across the lake, and somewhere beneath the quiet comfort of the cabin, Max lifted his head toward the stone hearth, as if he had heard the faintest sound hidden below the floor. The elderly woman followed Max's gaze to the stone fireplace and folded her hands with a knowing smile. "He hears it too," she said quietly. Owen looked from her to the dog. "Hears what?" She walked to the hearth and rested her fingertips against one of the wide gray stones. "This house has a habit of holding on to things people forget." Owen stepped closer, studying the carefully fitted masonry. "You make it sound alive." "Only in the way old places remember kindness," she replied. Max stood, pressed his nose against the lowest stone, then scratched the floor once before sitting again. His calm confidence unsettled Owen more than any warning ever could. "He has never done that without a reason," Owen said. The woman nodded. "Then perhaps today is the day." She reached beneath a nearby bookshelf and pulled out a small iron key attached to a weathered leather cord. Handing it to Owen, she said, "I have been keeping this safe for many years, but it was never mine." Owen turned the key in his hand. Its surface had been polished by time, and a tiny engraving of a pine tree decorated the bow. "Who left this?" he asked. The woman's eyes drifted toward the lake outside the window. "Someone who believed you would arrive when your heart was finally ready to ask questions, instead of demanding answers." Owen let out a slow breath. "Everyone seems to know more about my life than I do." "Not everyone," she answered gently. "Only those who kept a promise." Max returned to the fireplace and nudged the same stone again. Owen knelt beside him and noticed a narrow seam running along the edge of the hearth that had escaped his attention before. He inserted the iron key into a nearly invisible keyhole hidden beneath the stone ledge. At first nothing happened, then a soft click echoed beneath the floor. The heavy stone shifted less than an inch. Owen carefully pulled it aside, revealing a shallow compartment sealed from dust and moisture. Inside rested a wooden box wrapped in faded canvas. He lifted it with both hands and placed it on the old pine table. "Go ahead," the woman said. "It has waited long enough." Owen slowly opened the lid. Instead of gold or legal papers, he found neatly tied bundles of handwritten letters, a worn leather journal, and a black and white photograph of a smiling young man standing beside a quiet lake with a small cabin in the background. The young man looked strikingly familiar. Owen stared for several silent seconds before whispering, "That is my father." The woman smiled with quiet relief. "Yes, and those letters begin with the truth that was never spoken aloud." Max rested beside Owen's chair, his amber eyes calm as evening sunlight spread across the room. Outside, gentle waves touched the dock in a slow rhythm, while inside the little cabin, the first page of the journal waited to reveal a story that had remained hidden for decades. Owen carefully unfolded the first letter, the paper softened by age, but the handwriting still steady and unmistakably deliberate. He read the opening line aloud without thinking. "If you are holding this letter, then you found the place without anyone leading you, except the one friend who never learned how to lie." Owen stopped and looked at Max. The German Shepherd rested quietly beside the table, watching him with calm amber eyes. "That sounds like you," Owen whispered. The elderly woman smiled gently. "Keep reading." Owen turned the page. The words described a promise, made decades earlier between his father and the owner of the lake house. If the day ever came when greed divided the family, the public inheritance would become a distraction, while the real legacy remained hidden until someone reached the cabin by trust rather than by instruction. Owen lowered the letter. "So the will was never the whole story?" "No," the woman answered. "It was only the story everyone expected to hear." Max suddenly stood and walked toward the wall beside the bookshelf. He sniffed once, then looked back at Owen without making a sound. Owen walked over and noticed a framed landscape painting hanging slightly crooked. When he lifted it from the wall, another small compartment appeared behind it. Inside rested a brass compass, an old survey map, and a sealed envelope bearing his name in bold handwriting. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened it. The letter inside was shorter. "Owen, do not waste your years proving your worth to people who measure love by possession. If you are here, then you already chose the harder road, and that is exactly why this place belongs in your hands." Owen closed his eyes for a long moment. "He knew," he said quietly. "He knew all of this could happen." The woman nodded. He hoped it would not, but hope and preparation often walk together. Outside, the evening sun settled lower across the lake, turning the water into ribbons of gold. A pickup truck rolled slowly past the gravel road before disappearing behind the trees. Owen noticed it through the window. "Do many people come out here?" he asked. "Very few," the woman replied. "But news travels quickly in a small town. Someone may already know you found this place." Owen folded both letters and slipped them back into the wooden box. "Then we should find the rest before anyone else arrives." The woman looked toward the compass. "That is why it was left for you." Owen picked it up and watched the needle settle. Instead of pointing north, it drifted toward the fireplace before stopping completely. He frowned. "Compasses are not supposed to do that." The woman smiled. "Neither are old promises, yet somehow they always know where home is." Max quietly walked back to the hearth, placed one paw against the stone, and looked directly at Owen again. This time Owen did not hesitate. "All right, partner," he said, with a determined smile. "Show me what we have been missing all these years." Max kept his paw against the stone until Owen knelt beside him once more. The compass in his hand drifted again, its needle refusing every familiar direction before settling toward the hearth. Owen traced the edge of the lowest stone with his fingertips and noticed a shallow groove hidden beneath decades of soot. "There is another latch," he said quietly. The elderly woman nodded but did not step closer. Some doors can only be opened by the person they were meant for. Owen slipped the brass compass into the narrow groove. It fit perfectly. A soft click echoed beneath the cabin, followed by the slow sound of wood sliding against wood. A section of the wide plank floor beside the fireplace shifted several inches, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Cool air drifted upward, carrying the scent of cedar, dry earth, and old paper. Owen picked up an oil lantern resting beside the fireplace and lit it with a nearby match. Warm light spilled across the stone walls. "You knew this was here," he said. "I knew it existed," the woman replied. "I never knew what waited below. That was never my story to discover." Max stepped onto the first stair without hesitation, then paused to make sure Owen followed. "Lead the way, partner," Owen said with a quiet smile. The staircase descended nearly 20 feet before opening into a surprisingly large underground room. Shelves lined the walls from floor to ceiling. Carefully labeled boxes rested beside fishing tackle, camping gear, journals, framed photographs, and dozens of binders protected inside sealed containers. Nothing appeared abandoned. Everything had been preserved with remarkable care. Owen slowly turned in a full circle. "This is not a hiding place," he whispered. "It is an archive." The lantern light settled on a polished wooden sign mounted above a long workbench. The carved words read, "Lake House Veteran Renewal Project." Owen stared at the sign in silence. "Renewal," he repeated. The elderly woman gently brushed dust from one of the binders. "Your father believed that some people returned home, carrying burdens no one else could see. He dreamed of creating a place where they could rest before deciding what came next." Max stopped beside a steel filing cabinet and nudged the lowest drawer with his nose. Owen opened it and found dozens of unopened envelopes. Everyone carried the name of a veteran from different parts of the country. Some had forwarding addresses, others simply listed first names. "He planned to reach all of them," Owen said. "Yes," the woman answered softly. "Life ended before the work did." Owen carefully lifted another binder. Inside were handwritten plans for restoring the cabin, expanding the dock, building guest cottages, and creating trails around the lake for quiet reflection. Detailed notes filled every page, not about money, but about people. "He never wanted this place to become another vacation property," Owen said. "He wanted it to become a refuge." Max wagged his tail once before looking toward Owen with calm, patient eyes. Owen closed the binder and drew a slow breath. "Then maybe the story does not end with discovering this place," he said. "Maybe it begins with finishing what was started." The sound of tires crunching across the gravel outside echoed through the quiet cabin. Owen immediately looked toward the narrow window overlooking the driveway. A dark pickup stopped beside the old dock, and two familiar figures stepped out. One was the family attorney. The other was his cousin Daniel, whose surprise quickly gave way to disbelief as he spotted Owen standing inside the cabin. "I knew it," Daniel muttered as he approached the porch. "You found this place." Owen opened the front door before either man could knock. "You have been looking for it too?" Daniel folded his arms. "Everyone thought the old cabin was just another forgotten property. Nobody expected you to disappear after the reading of the will." The attorney removed his hat and offered a polite nod. "Mr. Maddox, I came because I discovered something this afternoon that should have been delivered years ago." He reached into his leather briefcase and carefully removed a sealed envelope marked with Owen's name in faded ink. Owen accepted it slowly. "Where did you find this?" "Hidden inside a locked drawer in the office where your father's estate records were stored," the attorney replied. "The drawer had a false back. We never knew it existed until this morning." Daniel frowned. "Another letter? How many secrets did they hide?" Before anyone answered, Max quietly walked between them and stopped beside the attorney. The German shepherd sniffed the briefcase, then gently touched it with his nose. "He is trying to tell us something," Owen said. The attorney hesitated before opening the case once more. There was one other item. He removed a thin leather folder tied with a blue ribbon. Inside rested signed property documents, engineering drawings for the lake house, and a notarized declaration bearing the signatures of Owen's father and two independent witnesses. The attorney adjusted his glasses. These documents established that the cabin and everything associated with it were transferred into a protected trust many years before the public will was ever written. Daniel stared silently at the papers. "So none of this was part of the inheritance everyone fought over?" "Correct," the attorney answered. "Legally, this property followed entirely different instructions." Owen slowly opened the newly delivered letter. The handwriting was instantly recognizable. His father had written only a few lines. "If others arrive before you understand the purpose of this place, do not argue with them. Invite them inside. Truth never needs to raise its voice." Owen lowered the page and looked at Daniel. For several long seconds, neither man spoke. Finally, Daniel sighed and looked around the cabin with new eyes. "I thought someone had stolen something from us," he admitted quietly. "Now, I am beginning to wonder if we never understood what was being protected." Max wagged his tail once and settled peacefully beside the fireplace as the evening sun poured through the western windows, filling the old cabin with warm golden light and revealing that the greatest discovery waiting inside had never been hidden beneath the floor at all, but within the purpose the place had quietly preserved across generations. The attorney carefully gathered the documents and placed them across the long pine table. "Everything is legally clear," he said. "The trust belongs to its intended purpose, and Owen has the authority to carry it forward." Daniel remained silent for several moments before finally looking at Owen. "I spent years believing the family estate was the most valuable thing our grandfather left behind," he admitted. "Now I realize we were fighting over the smallest piece of his vision." Owen folded his father's final letter and slipped it into the inside pocket of his jacket. "This place was never meant to separate people," he replied. "It was meant to give them somewhere to begin again." The elderly woman smiled softly. "Now you understand why no one was given directions. The cabin was never supposed to be found by someone looking for property. It had to be found by someone searching for purpose." Max quietly stood and walked toward the lakeside windows. Outside, the last light of evening painted the water in shades of gold and deep blue. A pair of loons drifted peacefully across the surface while the surrounding pines swayed gently in the cool breeze. Owen stepped onto the porch with the others following behind him. He looked across the empty shoreline and imagined the guest cabins shown in the old plans, the walking trails, the fire circle, veterans sitting together after long years of carrying memories too heavy to explain. "What are you thinking?" Daniel asked. Owen smiled for the first time in days. "I am thinking about finishing what my father started." The attorney closed his briefcase. "There are volunteers in town who would gladly help restore the property if you decide to move forward." The elderly woman nodded. Many people knew about the dream even if they never knew where it lived. Daniel extended his hand toward Owen. "If you will have me, I would like to help too." Owen looked at him for a moment before shaking his hand firmly. "Then let us build something worth leaving behind." Max gave a single happy bark and trotted toward the old dock, stopping halfway to look back as if inviting everyone to follow. They walked together to the end of the weathered boards, where the quiet lake stretched toward the distant hills. Owen noticed a small wooden box fastened beneath the railing with polished brass screws that looked much newer than the dock itself. "Did anyone know this was here?" he asked. The elderly woman slowly shook her head. Owen carefully removed the box and opened the lid. Inside rested a simple bronze key attached to a carved cedar tag bearing only 4 words. "Open on the first day." Beneath it lay one final handwritten note. Owen read it aloud. "When the house is filled with hope instead of questions, unlock the last door." He looked up, meeting each person's eyes before smiling at Max. "I have a feeling our friend already knows exactly where that door is." Max wagged his tail, turned toward the cabin, and started walking home beneath the fading light, as if the final chapter had been waiting patiently for all of them to arrive together. The first morning of spring arrived wrapped in pale mist that floated gently across the lake, softening every reflection, until water and sky seemed to become one. Owen stood on the rebuilt dock with a warm mug of coffee in his hands, while Max rested beside him, his silver and cream coat glowing beneath the early sunlight. The cabin no longer felt forgotten. Fresh cedar lined the porch. New windows welcomed the morning light. A wooden sign near the entrance read simply, "Welcome home." Owen smiled quietly. "We finally did it, partner." Max looked toward the winding driveway just as the sound of tires rolled through the trees. A small group of veterans stepped from 2 pickup trucks, each carrying nothing more than a duffel bag and uncertain expressions. Daniel walked beside them carrying a toolbox. The attorney followed with a folder tucked beneath one arm. The elderly woman greeted each visitor with homemade bread still warm from the oven. One gray-haired veteran paused at the edge of the porch. "Is this really for us?" Owen nodded. "It is for anyone who needs a place to breathe again." The man looked across the peaceful water before quietly answering, "I have not heard silence sound this kind in years." Throughout the day, laughter slowly replaced hesitation. Some repaired fences. Others planted young maple trees along the shoreline. One veteran carefully restored the old canoe hanging inside the boathouse. Another tuned the upright piano that had remained untouched for decades. Max wandered from person to person, accepting gentle pats and offering quiet companionship to anyone sitting alone. By evening, a fire crackled inside the stone fire pit overlooking the lake. Stories filled the cool air, not about medals or victories, but about families, second chances, favorite fishing trips, and dreams that had almost been forgotten. Owen listened more than he spoke. As darkness settled across the water, he remembered the small bronze key still resting in his jacket pocket. "I think today counts as the first day," he said softly. The elderly woman smiled. "Then perhaps it is time." Max stood immediately and walked toward the cabin. Everyone followed him inside. He stopped beside an old cedar cabinet built into the far wall of the great room. Owen inserted the bronze key into a nearly invisible lock. With a gentle click, the cabinet doors opened to reveal a single wooden shelf holding one framed photograph and one final letter. The photograph showed Owen's father, standing beside several veterans on the very same dock decades earlier. Across the bottom, someone had written in careful script, "A house becomes a home when hope walks through the door." Owen unfolded the last letter and read aloud. "If you are reading this, then the cabin has fulfilled its purpose. Never measure this place by its value. Measure it by every smile that returns, every burden shared, every sunrise watched beside a faithful friend. If that happens, then nothing was ever truly lost." Silence filled the room for a long moment before Daniel quietly placed a hand on Owen's shoulder. He would be proud. Owen looked toward Max, who was lying peacefully beside the fireplace, exactly where he had rested on the day everything changed. The shepherd slowly wagged his tail, as if he understood every word. Outside, moonlight stretched across the calm lake in a silver ribbon leading toward the distant shore, while inside the little cabin, warmth, friendship, and quiet hope filled every corner. Owen looked around at the people gathered beneath that roof and smiled with complete peace. "Welcome home," he said, and for the first time in many years, the words belonged to everyone. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with friends who might enjoy it too. We would love to know where you are watching from. Tell us your city and country in the comments. More heartfelt and unforgettable hero dog stories are already waiting for you. See you in the next one.